Hello, hello. Hello. Hello? Oh my God, the power, the raw power. Welcome everyone to Play Expo in Blackpool. It's cold out there, isn't it? It's cold and windy out there, but it's warm in the bosom of Norbreck Castle. Lucky you. Okay. Right. Hello, everyone. My name's Paul Drury. I'm co-host of the Ted Dabney Experience podcast. I'm here with my friend Martin Carroll, who does all the techie things that you're going to see behind you. And we both write for, here he is, we both write for Retro Gamer magazine. And over the 20-odd years that we've written for that magazine, we've interviewed many people that have made some great games. And we've interviewed many people that have made some great hardware. But guess what? Our guest today has made both great games and some great hardware. He's a real polymath. Please, can you give it up for RJ Michal? We've got some fans in the house. So, first of all, I want you to fess up. Who has been calling this great man Michal or Michaels? Or thank you very much. So it's definitely Michal. RJ Michal, okay. So there you go. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you how things are going to work. Is that we've picked out some hardware and some software to represent RJ's illustrious and long career. We're going to put some videos with each of them, ask a few questions, and then there'll be plenty of time for you at the end to ask your questions to RJ. So, do you want to sit down? Is that okay? So, so we're going to start. We're going to take you all the way back to 1982, please. Okay, so what we've got here is Williams' Sinistar, which was released in 82. But in 1981, I believe that's when you joined Williams. So let's start by saying, how did you get a job at this arcade company?
Hello, everyone. So, no, I'm not going to be comfortable sitting, sorry.
Are we standing?
I'm going to stand, sorry.
My
I can't see
back's
the people in the back when I'm
standing.
sitting.
Okay.
I got my break in the video game industry at this company, Williams Electronics. I had absolutely no skills. I had no qualifications for it. I just loved games, and it's what I wanted to do with my life was to get involved with this stuff. I had just gotten back. It's a real long story, but I'd spent a whole year traveling around the world, and when I got back with this idea that I wanted to do something meaningful with my life, that I didn't want to just have jobs and go through the motions, but I wanted to try to make a difference. And so I found video games as something that I could do with my skills, programming, art, music, all of that stuff, storytelling. And so I went to Williams and tried to get myself a job there, and they rejected me completely over and over again. Every time I tried, they rejected me, but I wanted into this company. So one day I went to the receptionist that worked at the company and bribed my way to get a copy of the phone list for the company out of her by promising to take her out on a real fancy date if she'd give me
priceless. You pimped yourself out to get into the arcade business. Well done.
And it worked. And we had a great date, too, by the way. It was a wonderful dinner, and we went out and
here she is at the back, ladies and gentlemen. No, sorry.
But yeah, and I got a job doing this, and I didn't do much on this. I came in at the very end of this project, but the absolutely cool thing about this is that they were almost done, and they had a date that they were trying to hit, but there was all the nifty little stuff wasn't done yet. They were still working so hard on the game engine, they didn't have time to put in the stuff like the explosion effects and the rocks bursting apart and all of that stuff. I got to do that stuff. My job was to do the splash and the fun and the special effects and things.
You absolutely sprinkled your fairy dust all over this one.
Oh,
I want to
wonderful.
go back a little. I'm not going to ask you about fairy dust. No. I'm really interested in the fact that I believe your educational background, you alluded to it there, was computer science. I think University of Illinois. Am I getting that right? But also, didn't you do a minor in philosophy? Right. So I just want to know, is that mix, you clearly mixed, science with art. Was that, would you say, important to bring to the arcade industry?
That's a very interesting observation. There's probably a lot of truth to that. I have dual degrees. I had gotten all the qualifications to get an English degree, and then was panicking with my life. What am I going to do with an English degree? I got an English degree because I wanted to write books. I wanted to tell stories. But you don't just write books and tell stories. With an English degree, you work for newspapers and magazines, and I didn't want to do any of that junk. I really didn't. And so I'm almost graduating. Oh, this is a great story. So I'm almost graduating, and at the University of Illinois, where I went, they had any student could get an account on the computer. And on that computer, they had this nifty old-timey Star Trek game. If you're an old-timer, you might remember it. It was just the grid, and you'd move your ship around in the grid, and you'd tell it what coordinates to shoot your shots at. And it was fun, but it was really miserable. So I had created my own version of that was a lot more fun to play. And it's this wonderful, honest to God, this happened. I'm sitting in the computer lab one afternoon, and I'm sitting there worrying, what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my life? And then I'd play my game for a while. And then, what am I going to do with my life? And then I'd play my game. Honest to God, I could do this.
Oh, fantastic. The project leader on this was...
Wait, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
And I loved philosophy. There's a specific study of philosophy called metaphysics that I was fascinated by. And I ended up taking all the undergraduate courses at the university that they had for philosophy, and then went to the philosophy department and begged my way into having them let me take the more graduate level philosophy courses in metaphysics, because I was just really fascinated in the subject. And for example, here's a question we got on day one of the class. Siamese twins, or conjoined twins, however you say that condition for people. One of them commits a murder. What do you do? He's found guilty committing a murder. What do you do with the two of them? And it's, questions like that are questions that not just about the laws, not just about the way things work, but that next level up. What are the rules about the laws that we follow and stuff like that? It was fascinating. Took tons of it. Got my graduate. When they put together, well, here's what all your credits are and everything. They said, well, looks like not only are you getting computer science, but you also have a major in English here because you took enough to get that. And it looks like you have enough for a minor in philosophy. And so I'm an official philosophizer. In case you have any deep and profound questions you'd like to answer, I'm your guy.
leave those to the end. Okay, it's interesting you mentioned storytelling.
Oh, someone's going to have to keep an eye on the clock for me because my answers are long.
All right, we can do that. The project leader on Sinistar was a chap that you might have heard of his name, Noah Falstein. And I think he was the guy that first maybe saw something in you. So could you just tell us a little bit about what it was like to work with Noah?
So these are great questions. Wow.
This is not my first rodeo.
Noah was the boss of this project, and he was, and still is, this gentle, loving soul of a human being. He's really a kind person. He was one of the programmers on this, but he doesn't program anymore. He's just full-time game consultant and advisor. And he speaks a lot in the industry and things. But he was the boss of this project, and just so you understand what kind of days these days were, Noah, as our boss, used to give out certificates. When you did something really good, he'd give you a certificate for having done a good job. And then at the end, you could take these certificates on Noah Day and trade them in for his homemade chocolate chip cookies.
Were they very, very special cookies?
Oh, they were so good. But this is the kind of company it was. This is the kind of, the days. You don't find stuff like that very much anymore these days.
One last thing on Sinistar is that I would have thought everyone in the audience would remember this game, and particularly the speech, "Run, coward, I hunger." Okay, were you there when that was being done?
Well, so we hired a professional voice actor. If you know this game, if you don't know it, there's voice soundtrack. It was one of the first games ever to do it. This game was really remarkable in a lot of ways. It had a real multitasking operating system running under the hood that executed the game. And we built specialized hardware to be able to take that entire Sinistar face and move it around the display like that. It needed specialized DMA hardware and all of that we had put together for it. But And while we were doing development, we had a lot of fun with this too. I remembered a story recently. I get to tell you too because I just remembered it. There was a bug early on in this program while we were developing it. If you've ever played this game, you know how hard it is to play. And there's a sad story about why it's so hard. The marketing guys made us make it harder in the end, but the game was so remarkably interesting. I lost my place of where I was in my answer.
It was the voice. It was you.
Oh, the voice. That's what you had asked about. It was so remarkably similar in so many different ways. But the voice thing was the thing that really set it off. And what we wanted to do was to get a professional voice actor in there to make it sound, like really powerful. And if you don't know the game, when the main character gets built, he starts shouting at you, "Run, coward, run," and "I hunger," and all of this wonderful stuff. And we hired a voice actor. He made a lot of stuff created for it. But this is the early days of all of this, and we were inventing everything. We're inventing the software to process the audio. We're inventing the hardware that would be able to play it back. It was all Wild West days while we were doing this. And Williams was just an amazing company that I worked with juicy, wonderful people from one end of that company to the other. But one of the things I like best about that company is some people got high. They got really stoned at that company, and they would take me with them. And one night, late at night, the audio guy and I had gotten really stoned, and he was showing me his stuff. And we started goofing around with it. And I started dictating some of the sound effects that were supposed to go into the game. "I hunger," and "Beware, I live," and all of that stuff. And in the end now, no one's quite sure which part of this is the voice actor, which part is me, which parts are some of it added together and things like that.
I love the idea that "I hunger" may have come from the fact that you had the munchies because you were so stoned. You heard it here first, people. Okay, I'm going to move on to something equally as drug-related. Can you take the next video? Okay, fantastic game, which I'm pretty sure most people in the audience will have heard of. Now, this next game, I'm saying possibly not. This is from 1983 by Williams again, called Star Rider. The key thing about this, it is a Laserdisc game. So I'm going to start, RJ, by saying, tell us when you first became aware of this amazing new Laserdisc technology.
So this is at Williams Electronics, and in fact, someone at Williams was the first person to tell me that there was such a thing as Laserdisc. That was where I first learned about it, when someone at Williams said, we've got this new capability. What can we do with this? What can we invent with it? And it's been one of the best things about my life and my professional career is that I've always had such superb hardware people that I get to work with, that are genius level people. And for this game, we had this crazy idea, and the hardware guy said, "Yeah, sure, we could do that," and implemented it for us, where we put this entire game, the entire video that we wanted for the game, was on the Laserdisc with frames that were video frames twice as wide as what a regular video frame would be. And the hardware guys invented technology that would pick some area out of that entire video frame and only show that one area. So that even though this is a fixed video that's constantly running and you can't do anything, nevertheless, you could steer left and right. And we create that effect of steering left and right simply by moving the background left and right on you as you steered. It was really remarkable. It was a different thing altogether. And so we not only started playing with this brand new Laserdisc technology, but we said, yeah, that's cool, but not enough. Let's get some more out of this stuff.
I mean, I've actually had the pleasure of playing this over in America, and I would describe it, it's a little bit like Easy Rider after they've dropped the acid. So was that the feel that you were going for with this game?
That's kind of the feeling we were going for, spacey, trippy.
Well, exactly. For those who haven't played it, do you want to give them an idea of what you're actually supposed to be doing, apart from having a semi-trip? So, would you like to explain what the goal of the game is?
Oh, it's a pretty simple game. You've got to make it through a race, and there's other opponents that you have to fight against, and obstacles show up on the course. But really, that's about it. That's the whole game. You just have to race through the race courses and make it to the end against the timer.
Now, we can't not ask about Laserdisc without saying it seemed to be the future, but it didn't quite work out to be the future. So, RJ, from you, as someone who's actually worked with this technology, when you were working with it in the lab, did you foresee any of the issues that would, come to be true in the real world?
Wow, we foresaw a lot of the issues, but we did not see that one where the laser discs themselves failed. I don't know if you know, but the laminate on the laser discs failed, and the layers separated from each other. And I had laser discs back then, and about 3/4 of my collection rotted out, and because of that. But a few of them were good. But we didn't know that at that time. We weren't worried about that. We just saw all the potential of it, except we did see one problem coming that turned out to be a real problem, and it's a laser disc, and it's highly sensitive, high velocity spinning, very real sensitive to jars to the cabinet or anything like that. And we figured out there in the field this is going to end up being a nightmare for Laserdisc games, because we know how people bang on games in the arcades, try to tilt the machines or whatever. And so we were really afraid of that, and we believed that any game that ever shipped with a Laserdisc in it was also going to have to ship with 500 pounds of weight that you would put in the bottom of the cabinet to keep it from jiggling around a lot. And we were right. Star Rider was a sit-down, big cabinet that had all the weight you needed, but a lot of other people brought out Laserdisc games, and that was a huge problem. And they ended up putting many, many pounds of weight in the bottoms of those cabinets, except they didn't have to buy them. They bought bricks and stuff like that and then put them in there. But
Can I ask you a very specific question about this game? Is that I'm always interested in firsts, and this game has got a rear view mirror on the bottom, so you can see the racers behind you. And I think, in arcade terms, I think it's the first one. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was that something of a eureka moment?
Oh, it was a brand new thing at the time, a backwards-looking mirror, and for us, the math involved in it was just fascinating. It was so cool to figure all that stuff out, to get it to be an accurate reflection of what you would be seeing behind you. But it also had to take into account where the roadway was and all these obstacles. It was just a fascinating problem we had a great time with.
Now, whilst it wasn't a financial success, are you happy with this game, RJ? I mean, I picked it out from your illustrious career. Are you pretty proud of what you achieved here?
I am indeed. I'm not as much as Sinistar, I have to admit. I like Sinistar better, but it was such a radical thing. It was such a unique thing, and it was, in fact, this game that got me invited to go and join Amiga Computer, because when the people there saw this, they were thinking, this is the kind of thinking we want. And so they grabbed finally, I brought another one myself, so there was 3 of us that went out of Williams Electronics to go join the original crew at Amiga.
Well, it's almost like we know what we're doing here, because our next slide...
Well, how about that?
That was a beautiful segue,
What a
wasn't it?
segue.
Okay. So, yes. So we're now coming to some of the hardware part of your story. So, yeah, my question is that there was definitely a link between your arcade work and joining Amiga, but I thought it was partly to do with an arcade machine falling on your foot. Have I got this story right? So tell us, how did you go from Williams across to Amiga?
So I'm a Chicago boy. I was this kid that grew up on the south side of Chicago. My family was fairly poor, and I didn't know nothing about nothing. I was just a kid, and we had so much fun working on the arcade games. And for me, it was this dream come true that I was able to work on such a cool thing. And then to have this company from California start inviting me to come out and interview, and I was feeling so big. I was feeling like, wow, I really can do things with my life here. But I'm from Illinois, and California's, those hippie weirdos that live out on the West Coast, and woo!
Custom in the house.
And my mom, before I moved to California, my mom warned me. She said, "Be careful out there. Don't forget, California's the land of fruits and nuts." She said, "It's the land of fruits and nuts, and you be careful out there." But I was really. It was fun. And I was flattered that they wanted me, but the thought of moving away from my home and my family and all my friends and weirdo California and all that stuff, And so I said I'd go out and interview, but I blew off my first interview at Amiga and just didn't bother to show up. I told them I can't come. And then they invited me a second time, said, we really want you. So they invited me a second time, and I blew them off a second time. I said no to Amiga twice. And then Noah Falstein and another friend and we had bought an arcade game together.
Red Baron.
Red Baron, thank you. The Vector Matrix game, that's a World War I airplane flying around. We had one, the three of us had bought together, and we shared it. And we were in the process of moving it over to my apartment, and we had it up on a dolly. And the dolly wheel hit a stone, and our precious Red Baron cabinet started crashing to the ground, and I was not going to let that happen. So I literally threw my body in front of that machine so it would crush me instead, and the machine survived, but my knee was badly damaged by it. And so now I'm walking around on a crutch, and Amiga invites me out for a third time, and I can't hardly do anything now with my life because of my legs badly damaged. And so I said, all right, I'll go to California and I'll interview with Amiga. That's so unreal to me to think how close I came to missing that opportunity. They could have said, who is this jerk? And just, never talk to me again. And I would have never been part of this whole amazing
that's
story.
A real sliding doors moment, isn't it?
Yes, it was.
Can I say kudos for throwing yourself underneath the machine? That's someone who cares about arcade games. I'm very impressed. So when you arrived at California to join the Amiga group, can you give us a sense of how far along the project was?
So when I was interviewing at Amiga, the project had just started. It was drawings, block diagram drawn on a whiteboard, and the hardware guys had started developing some of the chips, but it was all just on paper. They hadn't done anything physical at all yet. And the software, the two software people, one was the boss and one was Dale, who had started working on the graphics. Oh, and Carl had just been hired, who did the multitasking operating system kernel of the Amiga. And they had kind of a vague idea. The OS wasn't really started yet, and they knew where we were going to go. And the hardware guys knew where we were going to go. But where we were going to go was a game system. The Amiga was originally designed to be the next, the next killer for the game marketplace. And we wanted it to, we gave it all the features to be a superior game system to anything that was out there at the time. And so as we developed the whole thing, it turned out to be a really good thing that we had all these features in it that we had put in from the beginning. When we finally decided it's not going to make it as a game system, the game market has collapsed. We can't possibly launch this as a game system now because the entire thing is collapsing all around us. And so we had to abruptly change what we were working on from a game system to a proper computer. And the thought of taking a game system and turning it into a proper computer is ludicrous, except I believe that the engineers, were always secretly plotting to have it be a proper computer right from the beginning, because right from the beginning, they were putting a multitasking operating system, preemptive, truly interrupt-driven multitasking operating system. It made no sense for a game box. I'm talking to the bosses of the company, and they're like, oh yeah, come join, we're game system. I go back and I talk with the hardware guys. They've got this block diagram that shows that their game system has a port for external storage. Their game system has a port for a keyboard. And because it had all this cool stuff, then when we needed it, it was a simple matter of, not simple, but it was a fairly trivial matter of converting it to being a real proper computer.
Well, that's fascinating. One of the things you worked on, I understand, is the OS, and I think it was called Intuition, and I was really interested in the choice of that word. Was this you trying to make computers, which in the previous few decades had not been particularly accessible to the ordinary user? Was this you trying to create an OS that, well, your nana could use, as we'd say in our country.
Thank you. I mean, that was exactly it, and that's where the name Intuition came from. Nowadays, if you use user interfaces, they've all risen up to a very high level of quality. Well, I can't speak for Windows because I don't use Windows. I haven't since 2000.
Windows free since 2000.
Oh my God.
Well done.
In fact, I've got a box at home that has Windows 2000 on it still. And I make sure I never, ever connect this thing to the internet because I'm sure it would be bombarded the instant I touch the internet with it. So to make sure I don't, I have a piece of tape over the jack on the back to remind myself, do not plug this thing into the internet. But I've got some software that I've got the original Photoshop, which I love. I don't like the modern one. I like the original one. And so I'm keeping it alive on this machine. I'm keeping this machine alive because I could continue to use some of these key pieces of software that you can't use anymore on modern machines. Like, a DVD burner in case, someone around me wanted to rip DVDs, I would be able to help them.
Yeah, come the apocalypse, we might all be into that. Yeah, that'll be useful. The Amiga is still, I'm always fascinated, there's still people out there in Amiga groups. I'd like to give a little shout out to my friend Ravi Abbott and all the team that do Amiga Addict
Ravi
magazine.
Here?
So I don't think he is.
I haven't seen him.
He's my neighbour, so he lives with me.
Okay.
So I wanted to but the point is there's still people that absolutely love that machine. RJ, as someone who was there when it was being created, why do you think 40 years later people still love this little machine?
That's a really fascinating question, isn't it? We did Intuition. Like we named it that, as I was saying, because we wanted it to be accessible to everyone. We designed the Amiga to be as inexpensive as possible and as approachable, as accessible as it could possibly be, that anyone would be able to use it. We kept using my brother Ron as our example. He's a smart person, intelligent person, but didn't know anything about computers at the time. And could Ron understand this? Will Ron be able to figure this out? Was our regular target for that. And we wanted to build the machine for the common person. We wanted it to be that machine that everyone would be able to afford, everyone would be able to easily use and enrich their lives with it. And while we were still heavily focused on entertainment, on games for the Amiga, once it became a computer, a professional device, then all of a sudden we realized all of this potential for all this other things that you could do with it beyond just games. And we were thinking in the beginning that we'd be able to make a splash in the business world. That turned out to be not true, and the Macintosh and the PC won on that one because, especially the Mac one, over the Amiga. For a strange and bizarre and horrible reason. The Mac won over the Amiga because in the business marketplace. Because it had horrible pixels. It had these horrible little square black and white pixels that showed up on its display as crisp black and white pixels. And when you want to do spreadsheets, when you want to do word processing, you want crisp black and white pixels. The Amiga ran on a television. It was designed to be fuzzy. It was designed to work well with PAL or NTSC or any of the other standards. And by its nature, it wasn't a good word processing machine. It couldn't be a good spreadsheet machine because you had to make the cells in the spreadsheet so large to make sure you could make out all the individual characters. And it got better in later years, but in the beginning, it was, we didn't know where it was going to end up going. But we designed the machine for you. We designed the machine. Someone's already come up to me at this trade show and said, I got my break in the industry because I cut my teeth on the Amiga. And we hear this all the time, and it just enriches my soul every time I hear this. Because we did it for this reason. We wanted people to be able to lift themselves up with the machine, and every one of these little success stories is just another gold coin in my heart. It's just an amazing thing.
Gold coin in your heart. Well, beautiful. How poetic. For each of the machines you worked on, we've picked a game or two.
Oh,
to
yay!
represent it. Now,
Look, my favorite game!
Right. Now, there's a little bit of sarcasm there, because we picked this one because I think most people in the audience will really associate that with the early days of the Amiga. It's Defender of the Crown. Now, these will all love that game. I understand, please don't hate me, I don't think you love this. Not that it's not a good game, but it's something to do with your involvement in it. Would you like to explain why you haven't got quite the fond memories that maybe our audience has?
I'm not going to explain too much because I don't have fond memories, but I was young. I was naive. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a mentor to teach me how to make business deals or anything like that. And I made a deal with these guys and to develop this game. I did this game. I developed all the software for this game. And they ripped me off. They ripped me off real bad in the end. And so I don't associate myself much
So
with this game.
You don't have to look at it. It's okay. I'm really sorry about this.
It's such a good game.
PTSD.
It's a really good game. It really is. And the game design is superb. The game design now is superb. They ripped me off. It was a sad story. And so I took my name out of the game because I did the game. So if you run the game, you won't find my name in there. But if you look on the box, my name is on the box because I couldn't stop them from doing that. And so I did. But it was remarkable, and it was really heartbreaking for me because I didn't just do this game, but instead I did a game engine and then built this game on top of the engine. And I had intended to do 4 or 5 different games with these people, the CinemaWare people, but sadly it ended after this one because of all of that. But I have fond memories of the game. I have fond memory of all of these scenes, but one of my fondest memories is the debugging, early debugging days. I am astonished that this has not made it out to the internet yet. I'm guessing it must mean that no one's got an actual working copy of it anymore.
Go on.
Because in this game, if you remember this game, there's a scene where the hero and the damsel come together, and there's a fireplace in the background, and the two of them come walking up romantically toward each other with this fire flickering in the background. In the early days of development, when I was working on the game engine, I had that scene to work on. I can't believe I'm going to tell you guys this story.
Hey, keep going now. It's safe. He won't leave this room.
And I was working on the animation engine, and I was having a problem with the animations running at the same time that you were interacting with the keyboard or with the joystick. And so I put in some extra testing stuff to test it. And in that scene, the scene that I sent to them because they wanted proof that I had fixed the problem, so I sent them this demo. It's the couple are walking toward each other. But if you press the fire button, the more often you press it, this protrusion.
I'm glad you're not going to reenact this, actually, RJ.
Yeah, let's stop there.
Give us the blue pills. Right, okay. Wow. Did they clock that then? Is that in the game?
Oh no! I took it. Here's the scene. Yay! There's the scene.
Oh, as if by magic. Oh, well, you would, wouldn't you? You would. Right. Yeah, sorry. Is that why she's looking? Or is that a sword in your pocket where you're just pleased to see me? Is that okay? Yeah,
baby.
I'm looking at this. This is a
what's going
family
on down there.
But this is a family show. Okay. And on that bombshell, can we move on? Wow. There you go. Thank you. Let's move on. Thank you. Let's move on to a different sort of handheld now. We're going to go to the. We're going to go on to the Lynx now. Okay. So the Lynx came out at the end of the 80s. To be fair, RJ, I mean, the idea of having a cartridge-based handheld system was still pretty new in that decade. So I want to start by saying, what made you think that creating a handheld cartridge-based system was a good idea?
I had this hardware partner, Dave Needle. I mentioned him a moment ago. He was an incredible human being. He's gone now, sadly, but he and I did a bunch of things together. This is the second one now. Dave Needle was hired at Amiga and became a hardware engineer, and then finally grew to be Jay Miner's number 2 on the design of the hardware because Dave was just genius level. But my fun story about Dave Needle goes back to Laserdiscs. Dave Needle was one of the developers of a Laserdisc game. In fact, his Laserdisc game was one of the ones that people were putting 500 pounds of weights in on the bottom because he had a little stand-up console thing, and it was constantly, the disc was constantly skipping. But he was high on his success as an engineer, game developer. Everyone was loving him. He came waltzing into Amiga, expecting to be treated like royalty. And it's like, I would deign to work with your company if you offer me enough and you give me a throne or whatever. And he was just an arrogant jerk. And everyone said, oh, hell no. And so we told him, no way. And the next day he called up and said, oh my God, I don't know what I have done. That was so stupid of me. Please let me have another chance. I really want to work at your company. And this is such a cool thing and such cool people. I'll do anything. I'll sweep the floors in the lab. I'll do anything. And so we hired him to sweep the floors in the lab. Honest to God, we did. And the guy's sweeping the floor, and he'd see someone working on a hardware design, and he'd say, oh, well, you know, if you turn that transistor the other way, then, oh, good idea. And then he'd go back to sweeping the floors.
It's like Goodwill Hunting, is it? Amazing. Okay.
And so we did this machine together. This was our next generation, and where it came from, where we had the idea to do it is in classic Silicon Valley style. Oh, and the other Dave was Dave Morse, who was our president at all three of the companies that Dave and I did together. And Dave Morse's son had said, well, this Game Boy is nice, but why isn't it in color? And so we had lunch with Dave Morse the very next day, and Dave Morse said, you know what my kid said to me? And by the end of the lunch, we had a drawing on the napkin of the restaurant napkin, because none of us had a scrap of paper. And so we stole the napkin from the restaurant and everything like that. It was like real Silicon Valley story sort of thing. And it came out of that. We said, it's going to be color and it's going to be handheld. Let's go.
Amazing. When you're designing something like a handheld, I wonder, do you start with a wish list of features, or are you more conscious of what's the technology out there? What can we feasibly do?
Fascinating question again. I mean, and this was the cool thing about this is that you could look at a lot of examples of what else was being done out there in the real world, but there was nothing like what we wanted to do. We had the idea right from the beginning of being able to flip the unit entirely upside down so it could be a left-handed or a right-handed unit. We had, all these big dreams right from the very beginning of what we would do. And we had no restrictions. All we had was how far could the hardware guys go for the software guys and the things that we dreamed of. And so we gave them a wish list of things, including in our wish list we wished that the Lynx could do actual 3D. And turns out actual 3D is a much harder problem than you can do in a simple bit of silicone. There is an actual 3D mode in the Lynx, but most people have never seen it because it's kind of useless. It doesn't work really well. It does kind of work, and if you ever see any of the original Lynx demos, you'd be able to see 3D kind of working. But if you put an image on a cube and you rotate the cube around, it kind of, because it was fake 3D math, it kind of looks like the image on the cube, someone's pinched it in the center and pulling it in at the center, or pinch it in the center and pulling it out. It had that kind of weird graphic effect. It didn't really work well, but that one didn't work. Everything else worked. The audio in this thing worked really well, and we invented like crazy, and there was no one to tell us not to, except for Dave Needle, who would often say to me, well, we can't actually do that because it would violate the Einsteinian time-space continuum stuff. Oh, but we could do this instead, and he was always right. Dave Needle was always right.
I don't think anyone's got any issues with how good the console was, but I'm going to ask you the last bit about this is some of the business things. You started developing this and got some money, and you were backed by Epics, and then Atari got involved. How did you feel when Atari got involved? Okay, that's your answer there.
So a brief little story. You might not know this, but at near the end of the Amiga, before Commodore bought it, Atari was trying to buy it, and they were not nice business people. And all through, during Amiga and the in between Amiga and the links, I have a lot of friends in the software development community, and many of them told horror stories of working with this family that was running Atari, and I had tasted it myself from these horrible negotiations that they did during the Amiga days. And so this company that we were working at, Epix, a game company that at the time that did some really superb software, we were going to do our own company, but Dave Morse was already on the board of this company, this Epix company, and so we made a deal with them that we would do it at Epix and use their resources and save ourselves a lot of money, give them a piece of the action on the links. They were a game company. We had like a ready, available source of all kinds of software and excellent engineers, artists to make more for us as if the thing was successful. And we had set the whole thing up that way to work well without any restrictions whatsoever. But then Atari, when the Epix was developing this, at the same time, Epix foolishly, against our advice, against many people's advice throughout the company, they foolishly invested in a type of game. You might remember it. It was a game where it was a tape, a VHS tape or whatever, a VCR tape, and a board game, and you'd play the board game and then pause it every once in a while and watch something on the video. And the video you knew what you were going to see on the video. There was never any surprises. Then you go play the game, and you play this video. It was ridiculous. No one loved it. They sank millions and millions of dollars into the project and then didn't have any money left to do the proper production and marketing of the links, and so they had to find a partner to work with them. They didn't have enough money. They had to find someone else. And they found Atari, and Atari said, no, we don't want to be your partner. We just want to buy the unit from you. And Dave Needle and I said, nope, don't do it. They're going to find some way to destroy the company. They're going to drive you out of business somehow. Don't do it, don't do it. But the Epix lawyers, oh no, we can handle Atari lawyers, no problem. And they said they were going to go ahead with the deal. And Dave Needle and I said, we won't. If you're going to sell it to Atari, then we're going to quit. And they said, well, we're going to sell it to Atari. And so we quit, and then they sold it to Atari. And then all of that happened. I'm going to keep talking for a second. Dave Needle and I had brilliant relationships with everyone across the industry. We had a guy working for us that was a dear friend of both of us, Rick Rice. We called him the king of the Far East. He knew everyone in Taiwan. He knew everyone in the manufacturing plants in China. The guy was just genius level, how good he was at his job. I went to all the software companies on bended knee. Please, we got this new baby. Look at these cool demos. We developed software. And all our friends throughout the community, oh, hell yes, we're going to make software for this thing. We were going to have dozens and dozens of titles available at launch, and then dozens every month after that coming up. We were leveraging our good friendships, our good relationships with people, and we were going to use that and to have the Lynx be the most successful device ever. We had our connections with the hardware between Dave and Rick. We were begging a tenth of a penny off of the screws and everything with our contacts in the Far East and with in Taiwan with all the manufacturing. We had crafted these amazing deals where the machine was going to come out. It was going to cost less than $100 at launch, and it was going to have hundreds of titles within the first year, dozens at launch. And then Atari bought it, and sadly, the people that ran Atari had been bad guys for many years at this point, and so they went to the software people and said, well, we own it now, but keep going. And all the software people said, yeah, I remember how you ripped me off 2 years ago or 5 years ago. I don't want to be part of that anymore. And so all the software community pulled out. And all the hardware manufacturers over in Asia, they all said, yeah, we remember how you ripped us off when you were doing that Atari XS or whatever it is, and that we we'll sell you the screws, but it's a tenth of a penny more now instead of a tenth of a penny less. And so when they were finally done, I don't know how many titles they had at launch, 10, 8. And then the unit cost I think it was 180 when it first was launched, $180. And we would have had it under 100. And so the machine came out, it was our baby, but it was so expensive, and it had no software, and it had a miserable launch because of it.
Well, let's try and finish on a slightly more positive note. Is that before you left the Lynx project, is that you did work on I think all of the 6 launch games. So this is one of them. So I wanted to pick one because you're really rather proud of this, I believe. So this is Electro Cop from 1989. Tell us why you're particularly proud of this one, RJ.
Well, I didn't actually do any of the games myself. I was too busy working on the operating system. The Lynx didn't have a proper operating system. We created a bunch of runtimes that would make it easier for you to be able to do your development. We had things like, there was a main game loop that ran, and the Lynx had a fancy little feature in it. It had a keep alive hardware register that you had to hit on a regular basis, like I think it was 15 times a second minimum. Maybe it was 10 times a second minimum, but you had to keep hitting that hardware register to tell the system that you were still out there, that the system was still running, the software wasn't wedged or crashed or something. If you didn't hit that register, then the machine would reset. And we had a runtime that would do that for you. We had all this little stuff, but not pervasive. But we were all, of course, every one of us was intimately involved with every one of the games, and the game developers were intimately involved with one another's games because it's a brand new system and we were all just figuring it out. But this is the game that took the most advantage of the audio capabilities that we had put together in the beginning, and it was just a lot of fun. It was one of the most fun games that we had created at the launch as well.
I'm slightly conscious of the time, so can you click past this video and onto the...
I'm going too long, sorry.
No, not at all. Can you go past this one into there? Okay,
that one was my favorite.
I'm so sorry. Okay, so we're going to move on to the last piece of hardware in our presentation, which is the 3DO. And I believe, didn't a napkin become part of the genesis of this as well?
It's the same thing.
With you and napkins?
We didn't need a napkin for this one until we started designing the hardware architecture, because we had this fancy special star-shaped bus and architecture that we had created for the 3DO, made it set apart. But when we were thinking about it, it was a bit too complex to keep in our heads. So yet again, we grabbed a restaurant napkin and started drawing on it. And said Dave Needle, someone in Dave Needle's estate has that napkin too. It's still out there somewhere.
What pieces of history? That's amazing, isn't it? Okay. So tell us, I suppose the big thing in the early 90s was CD-ROM, okay? So was that the genesis of this console? Let's, use this new medium to make a game console.
It didn't start with the disc itself, but that was on day one. We decided that it was going to have that. But in the very beginning, we didn't know what we were going to do for storage until we actually started. But it was immediately obvious that we needed to go with optical drives to do that, to get that much content into the game. But we didn't want anyone to know. We were working on a game system, Silicon Valley, very close. Everyone knows everything that everyone's working on. And so we hid what we were working on by codenaming the project. We call it Opera, Project Opera. And because we knew that people were going to find out, because over in Asia, they all talk with each other. There's no secrets. Everyone knows what everyone else is doing. And so everyone was going to learn that we were working with a CD drive. And so we tried to hide it by calling it Opera.
Okay. Most people, when they see that console, will think of the name Trip Hawkins.
Yes.
Okay, now he wasn't there right at the start, right? So this is another case of you being in the start with Dave and other people, and another figure, in this case Trip Hawkins, coming along. So can I just ask you, so how did you feel when this guy, I think he's got quite a personality, hasn't he, Trip?
Oh my God.
How did you feel when this guy waltzed in and says, I want to be part of this?
So Trip Hawkins is, if you don't know, he was the head and founder of Electronic Arts, and then went and did this from EA, he ended up leaving EA to form this new company and to do the 3DO. And Tripp is such a salesperson. You've never met anyone be able to sell like Tripp did. He raised, I think it was 60 million or 100 million in the beginning for the 3DO, based on nothing, based on promising that something would be available someday, but it was all just vaporware. When they were raising money, we just barely had prototypes up and running in the lab, and there was nothing that looked like what the final product was going to be look like, but Tripp sold them all anyway and raised all this money from Time Warner and all these amazing major players.
One of the issues, as we can see there, is that the 3DO as a company was not the company making the hardware. In this case, it was Panasonic. And we perhaps know that usually Sega and Nintendo, they'll make the hardware, they'll make a bit of a loss on that, knowing that they'll make it all back on the games. Wasn't that a fundamental business flaw? And did no one, including yourself, go, hang on?
Wow, great. I too did not see it coming. I was stupid like everyone else at 3DO was stupid. What we're talking about here is that when you make a device that anyone can use, like the VCR standard, a standard for making video recording devices for tapes, which was a big thing at that time. No one needed to make money off of everyone was making money their own way. If you made a movie that ran on a VCR, you'd make money off of your movie. If you built the hardware, you'd make money off of the sales of the hardware. And Tripp was trying to create that same sort of system here, where we designed the 3DO standard, but anyone could develop a 3DO box. And there was not just the Panasonic, but Gold Star did one. There was several that were out that were actually manufactured. Panasonic made the best one, the sturdiest one, and it's the one that's lasted the longest over the years. But the idea was make a standard and then let the game companies, develop their games for the standard, and it doesn't matter who manufactures it, that your game will run on anyone's unit because it's a standard, and let the hardware manufacturers figure out, their own price points and do the stuff that they do to make a profit. The problem with it was that the unit was so expensive, and I partly blame Dave and me for it. We let it go too far, but because it had the drive in it, and it started out with 2 megabytes of RAM. 2 megabytes of RAM. And before we were done, it had gotten up to 4, which is funny now, but at the time we were paying twice the price for the RAMs as we had originally intended, and the whole unit came out so expensive that the hardware people just could not sell it at a price point where they would make a profit. And so finally we started realizing, well, we've got to start subsidizing these people, that we got to take some of the money we're making from the hardware and give it to the software manufacturers. Otherwise, they're not going to have, everyone's not going to have the right incentive to do their parts of it.
We're going to finish with a couple of games for the 3DO, and the one I've picked here, well, kind of you chose it because you've described this. It's Escape from Monster Manor from 1993, and you've called it, in your words, a little 3DO miracle. Can you tell us why you called it that?
So my whole professional career, I've always done something that I'm doing now at Google. I don't think we're going to have a chance to talk about Google. I don't think we're going to have a chance to talk about the fact that I'm doing AI at Google right now. And if you'd like to hear about that, we're having a chat with RJ session right after this. You can come and talk to me because I don't think we're going to get to it in this meeting. But this game, what I've done here, what we did at 3DO, we didn't do it at Amiga, and we were wrong. But we did do it at Lynx, and we did do it with the 3DO, and now I do the same thing at Google. I like to have a team, local, that's intention, its goal is to develop software for the thing that you're working on. So at 3DO, the entire time we were developing the 3DO, we had a team that was constantly working on the hardware, making sure it did the things it was supposed to do. That's all they existed for, was to write demos, write little toys, make sure that OS was working right, the APIs were working right. We had a test bed every time we'd create a new release of the OS. We could automatically run these pieces of existing software against it, and everything was just, a great way to develop. And at 3DO, we had that team that was constantly banging on things, testing things, and 3DO was going great. We had Trip, the hardware was going to be there. All these software people believed in it so much. They were developing this really cool, really awesome software for it, but everyone got so into it, their schedules kept slipping and slipping until finally we were only going to have 2 titles at the launch of the 3DO, and it was going to be an abject disaster to launch a machine with only 2 titles. And I turned to my development team that had been goofing around all of these years, playing and creating demos, and asked them if they wanted to be heroic. I asked them if they wanted to stand up and do a thing that you can't believe. We had 7 months until the launch of the 3DO, and they created this game in about 5 months. 5 months' time, this entire game, a team of 6 or 7 people, I'm not sure the exact count. They flatter me by including me on the photo on the box, but I didn't do any of the work on this game. This was all this absolutely brilliant team that pulled this off in a miracle short amount of time.
Okay. We're going to finish on perhaps the title that I always associate with the 3DO. It's Twisted. Which is a crazy mashup of like mini games, trivia, and quite a lot of cross-dressing. I would call this title fun, inventive, and a bit weird. RJ, do you think those words could be described to you and your career in video games?
Fun, invented, weird. That's what I would have said too. Do you know this game? It's time to get twisted. What a awesome game this was. This is my favorite game on the 3DO. It's one of my favorite games of all time. If we had had more time, it would have been richer and more wonderful experience. But as it is, it's pretty much a lot of fun. And if you have never played this game had something remarkable in it that I don't think I've ever seen done as well ever before. I think this game is the best at adapting itself to the skill level of the players. You can be, a great player, an intermediate player, or a novice player. And if I played, a regular adult great player, and some kid played at the novice level, we had an equal chance of winning that game. It was remarkable. We'd both have to work our little brains off and figure out the patterns that we were given and stuff like that, so that we were both equally pushed to try to win the game, and the kid had just as much chance as the adult of pulling off a win in the game because of this delicate balancing that we had created. I got a puzzle to solve, and it was an adult puzzle that really made me sweat. The kid got a puzzle. There was a kid version of a puzzle, but it really made the kid sweat, to get it done in time. It was just remarkable. Amazing, amazing title. I want to get the rights to this because I want to bring this out on other platforms.
Well, that's a nice one. So I'm finally going to finish, and we are skipping quite a lot of your career. Can I encourage you to go and talk to RJ at the signing table where you can ask him about lots and lots of things that we didn't have time to cover. But I do understand you are still involved with certainly technology, but also games as well. So you just want to finish saying, are you working on something game-related now?
So I am at Google. And I've been in the research department working on the AI for them for 11 years now. And in the beginning, 11 years ago, all this language model stuff that we're using today was existing, but was really miserable. It was so poor. But I was brought into the research department to work on entertainment things with the stuff that we were working with. I'm sporting around a jacket here from the Translate group at Google because we did some gamification even in the Translate stuff. We put at one time the Translate layer had, it was, if you were one of the people that helped a lot with the translations, if you helped correct translations and stuff like that, we gamified that for you so you could get points and have treasure chests with gold coins in them, and you could trade them in for the Google Caps and things like that. We turned it into a fun thing for the people that were working so hard for Google to make the translate better there by contributing. And so we tried to reward them for that. And that's what I've been doing at Google for all this time now, I was working on the language models. And in the beginning, we invented games like that. We invented a game called Say Something. This is, again, now 9 years ago. Say Something was a simple game where you get a sentence that has a blank in it, and everyone has to write something to fill in the blank. Then you put all the answers out on the table. Everyone laughs a lot, and you pick the one that you like, and if your answer got picked, you'd get points. And we developed this game because we wanted to develop an AI player for it that would come up with humorous answers for it. This is 9 years ago. And at that time, it turned out that we were lucky enough to get it to create just a grammatically correct answer to fit into that block. It was so, the technology was so crude at the time. And just a correct answer was enough. Funny was not even part of the question at this point. But, and it was so bad that we had the game was Say Something, and you'd play and you'd win points and we'd go for winners. And everyone knew that there was a bot that was playing one of the players in the game. But no one was surprised or fooled by this, and instead we created a secondary game. You'd play Say Something, but we had the secondary game that you could play called Spot the Bot, where you would pick out which one of those answers was the answer that was created by the bot. And even that wasn't any fun because there was never any doubt which one of those crappy answers had been invented by the AI. But yeah, that's what we've done all along. We've been working on games, we've been working on entertainment.
There's certainly been no crappy answers here. Before we do the round of applause, I've got time for 2 questions, that's it. So if you stick your hand up, if anyone wants to ask a question, I can take 2. I've got 1 here, so yeah, go for it, mate.
Blue Lightning, why is it your favourite? Because it was a tech demo, wasn't it?
Blue Lightning, why is it my favorite? It was a tech demo, wasn't it? Was the question?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
yes, that's what it was. Blue Lightning started out as just a tech demo and turned out to be a very fun game that we didn't see coming. We didn't know it was going to turn into that, but boy, what a fun game it is. I might misspeak, though, saying Blue Lightning is my favorite. It might instead be a tie between Blue Lightning and Red Baron. Warbirds. That's the Red Baron from earlier. Warbirds, the World War I aircraft flying
Rob
game.
Zadibble, I think, wrote that one, didn't he?
Sorry?
Is it Rob Zadibble, I think?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, yeah,
and it was Warbirds that launched the phrase that I've heard countless people use over the years, Link's thumb. You get Link's thumb from pressing that button too much to get it to work, and Warbirds did it, man. Warbirds did it. That game, when another player was on your tail and you wanted to turn to get out of the way, a light press on the button is the same as a hard press on the button. But when you want to get away, man, you get Link's thumb from trying to get away.
Yeah. Right, I'm very conscious of the time. So just before we launch into some applause, can I say thank you as always to my mate Martin, who does all the videos. Thank you for all the wonderful people like Simon and Mrs. Simon, who do all the tech here, Andy and his team that put this on. But most of all, we don't need a Link's thumb, but let's have a Blackpool hand for Mr. RJ Michal.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely brilliant. Well done. Okay. Okay. Stick around at 3 o'clock. We've got Jeff Minter in the room talking about some really exciting stuff he's working on. I'll be back tomorrow at 12 noon with Mr. Matt Householder. Well, we talk all things from Krull all the way to Diablo 2. Take care, everyone.